Okay, so first we'll discuss about derivation of demand from indifference curve. So I hope all you know what is an indifference curve. Shall I need to explain it again?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so indifference curve shows the combination of two goods which gives same satisfaction to a particular consumer. So suppose one of you prefer shirt and suppose trouser. Okay, so two pairs of shirt trouser and two shirt gives you the same satisfaction which gives given by three pairs of trouser and one pair of shirt. So any combination of two goods will give an particular consumer the same amount of satisfaction. If we trace these points and then we add, we will get this indifference curve. So I hope you are clear. And before going into the derivation of demand from indifference curve, there are two topics which I would like to first explain. One is price effect and another one is price consumption curve. So what is the price effect? Price effect shows that when we as a consumer purchasing something, we are paying price for it. So with the change in this price, our behavior for purchasing also changes. So what happens that when we are purchasing something, if its price falls, we'll try to buy it more, and if its price increases, we'll buy less of it. So this particular thing is called price effect. And price consumption curve is a curve which shows the price effect, that it shows how the changes in the price of a particular good will affect the consumer's purchase of the that particular good. While other things like the taste and preference of the consumer and the price of other related goods like complements, substitutes, and income of the consumer remains same. Okay. Now, to understand how we can derive demand curve from the indifference curve, we'll look at this graph which I have given here. So suppose I am a consumer and I have an initial income of rupees 300 and I want to buy good X, and the price of the good X at present in the market is rupees 15. So for 300 rupees, I can only buy 20 units of product. So if I look at this graph, we can see that here the X axis, there is quantity of good X, and on the Y axis, it's the money income which I am having with myself. So it starts from P, where the total income is 300, and this point is 20, because at rupees 15, I can only buy 20 units of product. So with these 2 points joining, the PL1 is the initial budget line. And the consumer is in IC1, indifference curve 1, and he is in equilibrium at point Q1, this one. So we can see from point Q1 point that he is buying only OA amount of quantity of good X. So if we trace this two information, like he is buying OA amount of good while the price is 15, we will get this point K. Now suppose there is some changes in the price and the price falls from 15 to 10. Now with the initial income 300, if we divide 300 by 10, we'll get 30. That means I can buy another 10 units more. So the budget line or the price line shift from PL1 to PL2. And at this PL2 point, the IC2 curve is tangent at Q2 point. So with this tangent point, the consumer is in equilibrium. At Q2 point, the consumer is buying OB quantity of produce. So if we trace these two information, that is he is buying OB quantity of the good and the price is 10, we'll get this L point. Now, if the price again falls to 7.5, the price line further shifts to the right to PL3. And at PL3, the consumer is in equilibrium at point Q. At point Q, the consumer is purchasing OC amount of good X. With tracing these two information, rupees 7.5 as the price of good X and the quantity bought by the consumer OC, we get this S point. And lastly, if further there is fall in the price to rupees 6, the price line will be PL4 and the consumer will move to IC4 and he will be equilibrium at point Q4. So if we join this Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 point, we will get the price consumption curve as given by the definition that it shows the changes in the price of a good, how it will be changing the purchase by the consumer. So we see that as the price keeps on falling, the consumer is purchasing more and more quantity of good X. So if we join these 4 points, we will get the price consumption curve. And in the lower section, we can see that at price 15, the consumer was purchasing O amount of quantity. As the price falls from 15 to 10, he is buying more. OB is greater than OA. Again, the price falls to 7.5. He is purchasing more than OB, which is OC. And lastly, the final reduction in the price to 6 leads him to buy OD amount of quantity, which is the highest. So if we join this K, L, S, T, all these 4 points, we will get the demand curve. I hope you all know that while drawing demand curve, the price of a particular commodity and the quantity remains on the Y and X axis respectively. So this shows the demand curve and it shows how with the change in the price of a particular commodity, the consumer will change its purchase. I hope all you have understood it. If you have not understand any part, you can ask me or I will move to the next topic. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so shall I move to the
Yes,
next
ma'am.
topic? Okay, so the next topic is application of indifference curve. So we have already discussed what is indifference curve. Now, indifference curve has been used by economists, policymakers for making different types of economic developmental policies or different planning. So we will discuss only two applications here. One is uh, direct tax versus indirect tax, which shows which one is better for the consumer, and again between cash subsidy and price subsidy. Okay, so first we'll discuss about direct tax versus indirect tax. So what is a direct tax? Direct tax when the incident or impact is on the same person. Means suppose a tax is imposed on me. So I will be the final bearer of that tax. I will bear the final burden of the tax. That is direct tax. And in case of indirect tax, like sales tax, the initial burden is on the producer, like GST. But when we as a consumer purchasing that particular product, we are actually paying from our pocket. So what happens that the initial burden is even if on the producer, the final burden is on ourselves, which is the consumer. So that is indirect tax. So suppose there is a scenario where the government wants to generate a particular amount of revenue. Now they have two options. One, they can increase the income tax, which is the direct tax, or they can increase the indirect tax, such as sales tax, excise duty, or GST, etc. So with the help of this indifference curve, will try to find out that which type of tax between these two, that is direct tax or indirect tax, is better for the economy, for the consumer, and which one causes extra burden on the consumer. So suppose with the initial income, the consumer is on the price line PL1. And in this price line, he is on the indifference curve IC3, where he is in the equilibrium position at Q3, because this Q3 point is the tangency point between IC3 and PL1. Now suppose the government levies an excise duty or GST or sales tax, whatever. With this imposition of the tax, indirect tax, the price of the good X will increase. So in the x-axis, we are measuring the quantity of commodity X, and on the y-axis, we are measuring the money income of that particular consumer. So with the increase in the price of the good X, the price line PL1 will shift to leftward, because with the initial income, he was previously purchasing OL1 amount of commodity X, but with the increase of the price, now he will be able to purchase only less amount of X. So the next budget line will be PL2. Now at this PL2 point, he will be at the tangents, he will be equilibrium at point Q1, which is the tangency point between IC1 and PL2. So as a result of the imposition of this indirect tax, the particular individual has shifted from a higher indifference curve, which was IC3, to a lower one, IC1. And as per the characteristics, or we can say the properties of indifference curve, we know that the farther the indifference curve from the origin, the higher satisfaction it gives to the consumer. Since he moved from higher indifference curve to lower one, we can say that his level of satisfaction or welfare has declined. Now, if we see that previously he was purchasing at the point Q3, and now he is purchasing at point Q1. So he is purchasing ON amount of commodity X, and for that he is paying PM amount of money. Now if we join this NQ point to till PL line, we will get this K point. So if the price line was still PL1, then to buy this ON quantity of commodity X, he would have paid only PT amount of money. So this PM minus PT, which is equal to MT, or Q1K, is the amount of indirect tax. I hope all of you have understood.
Ma'am, would you please repeat it once?
Okay. So first, suppose I am a consumer. I have initial income of XYZ, जो भी हो. So with the initial income, my price line is PL1. And at this price line, I am at a indifference curve IC3, and the equilibrium point is Q3, because that is the tangency point between IC3 and PL1. Now, the government put an indirect tax on commodity X. So previously, suppose it was priced at ₹10, now it has become 15. So it will shift my price line from PL1 to PL2, because previously I was able to purchase more. Now I will be purchasing less with the similar amount of income I am having. So as a result, my price line will shift to PL2, and we can see that at PL2, I am at equilibrium at point Q1, and I am at indifference curve IC1. Since IC1 is at a lower level to IC3, my satisfaction level compared to the previous one has reduced. Now at point Q1, I am purchasing ON amount of commodity X, and indifference curve का जो definition है, I hope you are comfortable in Hindi.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so IC curve का जो definition है उसमें क्या बोलते हैं कि a point on a indifference curve shows the similar satisfaction for all the points. तो अभी क्या हुआ कि Q1 point पे यहाँ पे money income है और यहाँ पे commodity X है. So ON amount of commodity X plus OM amount of money gives me the same satisfaction level. So if I am keeping OM amount of money from this OP total amount of initial income I am having, I am paying MP amount of money for that particular commodity. But if the initial price line was PL1, this one, we can see that to buy this ON amount of quantity, I would have paid PT amount of price. Why? Because in the initial price line, ON amount of commodity X and OT amount of money, this combination of these two gives me the same satisfaction level. So I would have spared only PT amount to buy this ON quantity of produce. So because of this reason, now I am paying PM amount. Previously, I was paying PT amount. So this difference between these two, which is MT amount, is the amount of indirect tax. I hope it's clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now we move to the lump sum tax. Suppose government don't choose to put indirect tax. They are taking a lump sum amount as income tax from the income of the people. Okay. So initially again the price line was PL1. I am at a indifference curve IC3 and Q3 point is my equilibrium point. Suppose the government put an indirect tax equal to PA amount. So this PA amount of direct tax will cause my price line to shift parallelly from PL1 to AB. At this price line AB, I am at equilibrium at point Q2 and I am at a indifference curve IC2, which is though lower than previous IC3 because I have already paid direct tax, so that money income with me will be obviously less. So my satisfaction level is bound to be low than the previous amount. But if we look at the graph here, we can see that when indirect tax was imposed, I was at point Q1 and indifference curve IC3. But with the imposition of direct tax, I am at indifference curve IC2 and point Q2. So my satisfaction level is more than compared to Q1 because IC2 is at a higher level than IC1. So when an indirect tax is imposed, the consumer satisfaction level is reduced more. And when the direct tax is imposed, the consumer satisfaction level, though reduced, but it is more than the indirect tax. So always it is preferred to put more direct tax instead of indirect tax because the indirect tax reduces satisfaction much more or welfare much more than direct tax. Now, why this happens? Why direct tax doesn't cause the same
Good morning,
amount
sir.
of satisfaction reduction like the indirect tax? So what happens that when indirect tax is put on a commodity, the price of the commodity increases. So with the change in the price of that commodity, there is two types of effect which is happening. One is income effect, which caused by the reduction in the real income or the purchasing power of the consumer, and another one is substitution effect. With the increase in the price, the consumer finds it dearer, and he will substitute it for the more cheaper alternatives, which doesn't happen in case of the direct tax. Because in case of direct tax, there is no substitution effect because there is no change in the price of the commodity. There is only change in the purchasing power. So what happens that because of these two effects combining together, the satisfaction level reduces much more than direct tax. Clear, everyone?
Yes, ma'am. Chalo.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the
Yes, ma'am.
next application of indifference curve is price subsidy versus cash subsidy. So what is price subsidy? Price subsidy is also called excise subsidy, and in this case the government pays a part of the price of the good where the price of the good is reduced and the consumer can buy any unit which he likes at the subsidized price. And in case of cash subsidy, the government provides a particular lump sum amount to the consumer as a aid, as a financial aid. Now again, suppose the first we'll discuss about the effect of price subsidy, and then we'll discuss about the cash subsidy. So initially the price income the money income of the consumer, and with the prevailing market price of the food, the price line is PL1, this one. But since the subsidy paid by the government is half the market price, the consumer will only pay the half of the market price. So as a result, his will shift from PL1 from
Ma'am, you are not audible.
Connected to problem. She will join. Wait, please.
So please share that PPT yesterday class we have attended.
I explain. Actually, what happened? University authority has restricted to shares all PPT and study material on group. Still completed this whole program. After completed this whole program, I will personally share with you. Okay. Still, government
Okay.
university authority has restricted to share any material with. Okay. So after completion, that is after 10 March, I will. Okay.
Okay. Okay, sir.
sorry everyone, there was some
Ma'am, your voice is not clear. Not audible properly.
for my end. I'm trying. Hello? Hello, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Now it's audible.
Okay. Actually, there was some problem from my end. I'm sorry for that. I'm trying to reconnect. Is the PPT visible? Hello.
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am. PPT is
Okay. Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Is
Voice
this
is clear.
visible now?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. So I will start from the beginning. They're so sorry for. Please excuse me. So again, hello, hello.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay. So second, we will talk about price subsidy versus cash subsidy. So price subsidy is a part which is subsidized by the government as a part of the price of a good, and the consumer can buy many units as he desires at that particular subsidized price. Now, in case of cash subsidy, what happens? The government doesn't subsidize the price of the commodity. Instead, they give a lump sum cash income to the consumer. So, suppose I am a consumer and I am having a particular money income with me, and the price and the food is and my money income is so with the given money income and the quantity of food I'm purchasing with that money income, the initial budget line of me is PL1. So now the government pays half of the price of that particular good or the of or food. So what happens? Price, market price. So as a result, my price line will shift from PL1 to PL2 because now with the subsidized price, I will be able to purchase more. So my budget line will shift from PL1 to the right to PL2. Okay. Now, now at this PL2 point, I am at equilibrium point at R on the indifference curve IC where I am purchasing OA amount of food. Now, if there was no subsidy was given, then the individual, in order to purchase OA amount of food, he would have paid PN amount of money because this OA amount of food and ON amount of money gives him the same satisfaction level, this combination, which we can see from this point M. And in the next shifted price line, where the price line is PL2, when I am purchasing ON quantity, I am indifferent about OT amount of money. That means I am paying PT amount of money for this OA quantity of food. So this difference between PN amount which I would have paid if the price was not subsidized by the government, and the price I am paying now, which is PT, the difference between these two subsidy the government is giving, which is PT equal to NT or M. Everyone clear? Or shall I explain it again?
Yes, ma'am.
Please explain again. Ma'am, please explain again.
Okay. So first, my initial price line was PL1, and then government subsidized the food. So with the same initial income, I am able to purchase more. So my price line shifts from PL1 to PL2 to the right because I am able to purchase more. Now at this PL2 price, I am at equilibrium at point R. And this R point, I am purchasing OA amount of food. And for this OA amount of food, I am paying PT amount of money from my income. How we can know that? Similarly, for that indifference curves characteristic, OA amount of food and OT amount of money, this combination gives me the same satisfaction. So I am keeping OT amount of money with me and I am paying PT amount of money for that particular amount of food. Now if there would have been no subsidy from the government, the price line or the budget line for me would be the same that first one, which is the PL1. So if we look at this PL1 and if we draw perpendicular from this R to PL1, we will see that this will cut this PL1 at point M. So if the initial price line was PL1 and there is no subsidy, then to buy this OA quantity of food, I would have paid PN amount, because at this M point, I am indifferent about ON amount of money income and OA amount of food. So I would have amount of money for this OA quantity of, but because of that subsidy, I am paying only PT amount of money. So this difference between this PN and PT, which is equal to NT amount, is amount of subsidy or the price subsidy given by the government on the food. Now, this price subsidy, suppose the government has given us a lump sum cash grant, which is equivalent to the cost of the price subsidy. So as a result, what happens? Initially, again, my price line is PL1. With the increase in the income, the lump sum grant which has been given by the government, my price line shifts from PL1 to CD, which is parallel to the PL1. Now at this CD price line, I am at equilibrium at point H and I am at an equilibrium at indifference curve IC2. If we compare these 2 points R and H, we can see that R is on the indifference curve IC1, which is at a lower level, and H point is at IC2, which is at a higher level. So there is more satisfaction to the consumer when the lump sum grant amount was given to him. And we can also see previously at point R, he was purchasing OA amount of food, but now at point H, he is purchasing OB quantity of food. So his purchase of the food has also reduced. So we can say that price subsidy is worse than cash subsidy. Cash subsidy is always better because it helps the consumer to reach a higher indifference curve, which indicate higher satisfaction level and higher welfare, and also he is free to choose what he can buy with this particular income, because when there is subsidized price of the food, he is forced to purchase that food at the subsidized price, and because it is cheaper, he will substitute it for the other dearer products. But in case of lump sum cash grant, there is no such force on him, so he will be able to use that money on various commodities. As a result, also there is more satisfaction to him than given by the subsidized price of the food. The same as indirect tax and direct tax. I hope it is clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I'm moving to the last and the final topic, which is revealed preference hypothesis. So, revealed preference hypothesis, as we all know, was given by an American economist, Paul Samuelson. And he told that when, suppose I'm a consumer and I want to buy a shirt, and there are 5 shirts given to me, and I prefer a particular red shirt over all the other alternatives I am having. Now, what happens that I am by choosing that particular red shirt, I am revealing my preference for that particular shirt, and I am considering all other combinations which I was offered inferior to that particular one, that red shirt. Basically, when a consumer, a person something over all the other alternatives, he is revealing his preference. That's why this particular hypothesis is called revealed preference theory. And there are 3 very important assumptions. Firstly, the consumer is rational. इसका मतलब क्या है कि I am as a consumer, I will always prefer a bundle of good which has more quantity in it. There is suppose 5 bundles. One contains 10 chocolate, one contains 15 chocolate, another contains 20, another contains 5, another contains suppose 25. So I, as a rational consumer, will always choose the highest one which has the most quantity of the goods. So that is rationality on the part of the consumer. The second one is consistency. What does it mean? That suppose in a scenario which I have given you example कि मेरे पास 5 शर्ट के ऑप्शन थे, I have only chosen the red one. So there are also options like green one, blue one, black one, but I have not chosen those, but I have chosen the red one. So I have already given my preference towards it. There is also present a blue shirt. Now, in some other day, I went to the same market or the same shop, and the same combination of shirts were given to me to choose from. Now, if I choose the black one or the blue one instead of the red one, even if it's present, I'm not a consistent consumer. I have to pick the same red shirt when it is present because I have chosen it previously. So that shows the consistency of my choices. That's a very important assumption of this particular hypothesis. And the last one is, if any particular situation, a bundle or a combination of good A is preferred over a particular combination of good B, and this B is preferred over C, then it automatically assumes that the first bundle A is will always be preferred over the bundle C. So that is called transitivity. Now, with this assumption, we'll discuss how this revealed preference theory works with the help of this graph. Now we can see that in the x-axis we have taken the quantity of good x, and in the y-axis we have taken the quantity of good y. So with the initial income of the consumer and the price of this both goods, the price line is PL. Now, since the consumer is having this PL amount of money income, he can choose any combination A, B, C, which is on the price line, or D, E, F, G, which is within the price line. That means it is within his budget. Now, if we look at these 2 lines, one is AH and AS, we can see that along this AS line, if we compare it with this A point, though the good Y remains at the same level, the good X is increasing. So any point in this AS line will always be preferred over point A. And any line on this point AH will always be preferred over point A, because at this line, though good X is constant, but good Y, quantity of good Y is always increasing. And if we look at this particular shaded area, which is between these 2 lines, AH and AS, that is point I, J, K, all there may be different other points. It will be also always preferred over this point A because it gives more quantity of both the produce. But why he is not choosing of any of these points? Because it is beyond his budget. His budget is PL1. He cannot go beyond his budget to satisfy his desire. His satisfaction cannot be increased more than his purchasing power or his budget. So what happens that he will choose any point on this particular price line or maybe below it. But since he is trying to maximize his satisfaction as a rational consumer, he will always choose the maximum one. So suppose he chooses but the combination A over B, C, D, E, F, etc., whatever is available to him. So in this way, he is revealing his preference for that particular combination of A over all other combination, which is B, C, D, E, F, G. And he is showing that this particular combination, which contains ON amount of good X and ON amount of good Y, is superior to all other combinations, and all other combinations are inferior to him. So this is reveal preference hypothesis. I hope all of you have understood. If not, you can tell me. Shall I move to the next part?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the next part is deriving demand theorem from this particular hypothesis. Now, to derive the demand theorem, the Professor Samuelson has assumed a very important assumption, which is positive income elasticity of demand. Because in order to establish the inverse relationship between price and quantity, which is basically the law of demand, he needed that particular assumption to prove it from the reveal preference hypothesis. And he stated the demand theorem as fundamental theorem of consumption theory. And he has given that theory as any good that is known always to increase in demand when money income alone rises. So what it means? Any good that is known always to increase in demand when money income alone rises. It means positive income elasticity. जब भी किसी का income अकेला increase होगा, तो ये commodity का जो demand है वो भी increase होगा. That means there is positive income elasticity between this good and the income of the consumer. Must definitely shrink in demand when its price alone rises. जिस commodity का income elasticity positive है, जब भी price rise होगा, only the price will rise alone, then there will be a reduce in the demand. He called it as a fundamental theorem of consumption theory. Now, to understand this scenario, we'll take help of this graph, where in the x-axis there is quantity of good X, and on the y-axis there is quantity of good Y. Now, initially, suppose the first initial price line was AB. Okay, and the consumer was at this point Q, and he revealed his preference for point Q, and he revealed other points as being inferior to it. Now, suppose there is a price rise in terms of good X. So what happens that this AB price line will shift from AB to AC. Now, in this AC curve, we can see that there is no such points given, because in order to find out this particular effect of the price increase, what Professor Samuelson has done, that he has given an equivalent amount of money to compensate him for the price rise, which is given by the cost difference. You all know that term is given by J.R. Hicks, that cost difference क्या होता है कि suppose price rise होने के वजह से the consumer will be able to purchase now reduced quantity of the produce. Now the same amount of money is given to him him so that he can buy the initial purchasing combination, which is point Q. So the next, after giving the particular grant or the cost difference amount to the particular consumer, the next budget line will be DE, which will pass through the point Q. It indicates that with this purchasing power, he can now buy the previous quantity which he was purchasing before the increase in the price. So what happens that he cannot choose any point below this Q, because if he choose, he will become inconsistent. Why so? Because when he will choose any point below Q, it was already previously available to him when his price line was AB. But he preferred Q over all of them, and he told or he revealed that all of these points which is below Q is inferior to point Q. Now he has two options. One, he can choose from the point Q which he was previously purchasing, or he can choose any point on this segment. Why it is not inconsistent? Because when he was at point AB, price line AB, this particular part was beyond his price line. So if he purchase any combination from this part, it will not be an inconsistent choice because it was not previously available to him. So he can choose point Q or this any point in this part. And as a result, if he choose any point here or here or here, we can see that he will be purchasing less and less quantity of good X. So if this cash grant or the cost difference is uh, taken away from him, he will come to this AC. Even after giving him the cash grant, he is purchasing the same amount or reduced amount of good X. So if he is taken back that particular amount, he will definitely buy less and less amount of good X because of the increase in the price. So from this, we can conclude that we are able to derive the demand theorem, which says that when the price when the price of a particular commodity increases, the quantity demanded of that particular commodity will decrease. So with this, I conclude the lecture on these three topics. If any of you have any question, or if you have not able to understand any part, you can ask me, or I will continue to the next lecture. We'll start from the 11:30, or we can take a 5 minutes break.
Yeah, I request to all the participants, if someone has any query regarding this session, please ask to ma'am. Otherwise, we will take 5 minute break and then start our next session.
Everyone, please feel free to ask anything, or even if you have any feedback, like if you have not liked any part of my teaching, you can tell also, because I am not a teacher. I am just taking a class of you first time. So there may be some lacuna, there may be some problem, or you may feel that their ma'am could have understood us this better. So you can tell, you can free to tell. I will be more than happy to accept your feedback.
Hello, ma'am. Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
Ma'am, I want to.
Yeah, you are visible. Audible.
Ma'am, can you explain real preference theories graph again?
Deriving demand theorem, or the original
Real preference
graph?
theory
This
graph.
one.
This graph. Yes, ma'am. Yes, yes.
Okay. So suppose there are two goods. Okay. Um, Suppose sari and jeans. Okay. So good X is sari and good Y is jeans. So with the income you are having, you can purchase any combination within the budget line PL, because your budget line is PL with the income you are having um, and the price of this particular two commodities. Now Now you can choose from any of the point A, B, C, D, E, F, G, because this is within your capacity. This is within your budget constraint. So what happens that if we look at this two line, which is AH and AS, these two are simply two perpendicular drawn from A. And this is drawn to just show that even if there is some combination which is particularly preferred over this A B C D F G H combination, but since they are not within the budget constraint of the particular consumer, it is not viable for them to achieve it. So what happens that he will be only able to purchase any combination which is within his budget line or on his budget line. So he choose suppose A combination. While choosing this A combination, he is purchasing OM quantity of good X and ON quantity of good Y. Now, when he choose this particular combination A, he is preferring over all other combination of combination of this good X and good Y, which is given, which is within or on the budget line. Suppose B. Now, if we draw in perpendicular to B, we can see that the good X amount of good X will be increased and the amount of good Y will be decreased. So he is not particularly fond of this combination. If we look at this point C, there is less of good X and more of good Y. He is not also particularly fond of this combination as well. He will only buy this particular combination A even if he has given options of all these other combination, and this way he is revealing his preference for this particular combination, and he is also revealing that all other combination like B, C, D, E, F, G, all this is inferior to him. Now what happens to this combination which is IJK? It is obviously always preferred over point A because it will give him more quantity of both the goods, but it is beyond his capacity, it is beyond his budget line, so he will not be able to purchase it. So he will be at point A and he will not be at this point which is beyond his purchasing capacity. Clear?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Hello, Jessica. I just saw your question. Any price subsidized good? Yeah, like fertilizer, like electricity for farmers. No, suppose fertilizer अभी अगर farmers 1200 rupees per kg पे खरीद रहे हैं, there is also 1000 or 1200 rupees subsidy given by the government to the producer company who are producing the fertilizer. Even for electricity also, when electricity is being used by the farmer for irrigation, then also that amount of electricity which he is using at a subsidized rate. So these are some of the example of price subsidized good. And also in the PDS system, I hope you know that रेशन का दुकान जो बोलते हैं, उसमें जो 2 rupees 3 rupees का जो गेहूं चावल मिलता है ना, that is also price subsidized good, because how you will able to get 1 kg of rice at price 2 or 1 kg of wheat at price 2. That are all price subsidized goods. Clear, Jessica? Okay. Any other queries or question? So shall we take 5 minutes break?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shall we start, everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm sharing my screen. Please let me know if it's visible.
Yes, it's visible, ma'am.
Hello everyone again. So now we'll talk about elasticity of demand and its determinants, and lastly consumer surplus. So shall I start?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. First we'll discuss about elasticity of demand. तो इलास्टिसिटी क्या होता है? We all know कि गार्डर या ऐसे जो चीज को हम ऐसे खींच सकते विदाउट ब्रेकिंग इट, वी कॉल देम इलास्टिक. तो इलास्टिसिटी का मतलब क्या होता है कि जबकि कोई डिमांड ऑफ अ पर्टिकुलर कमोडिटी, how it responses or how it changes with the change in the price of the particular good. It's basically its responsiveness towards the change in its price. So there are three types of elasticity. One is called price elasticity, which is basically with a change in the price. जब भी हम elasticity बोलते हैं demand के, we generally refer to this particular price elasticity. The second one is income elasticity, and the third one is cross price elasticity or cross elasticity. So first we'll discuss the most important one, which is price elasticity. It indicates the responsiveness of quantity demanded of a particular good to the change in its price level, while other things being constant. What are the other things? Other things like price of the related goods, taste and preference of the consumer, and income of the consumer. So EP, which is the coefficient of the price elasticity, is a ratio between percentage change or the proportionate change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change or proportionate change in the price of that particular good. Now, demand for good can be elastic, can be inelastic, can be relatively elastic, perfectly elastic. There are 5 types. We'll discuss about it. First, what is relatively elastic? So, when suppose there is 2% or 10% increase in the price of a particular commodity. But because of this 10% increase in the price, there is 20% reduction in the quantity demanded. So the proportionate change or the percentage change of the quantity demanded more than the proportionate change of the price. So in this case, we can say that the demand for that particular good is relatively elastic. In this case, the value of the price elasticity or the coefficient of price elasticity, that is EP, is greater than 1. Now, it happens that in case of necessary goods, or that I will discuss further, but suppose in case of salt or food items, what happens that when even if there is 10% rise in the price level, but there will be only like 2 or 3% or maybe 5%, which is less than 10% decrease in the quantity demanded. So in case of inelastic good, what happens that the quantity demanded, a change in the quantity demanded will always be less than the percentage change in the price. So if it is the price changed by 10%, the proportionate decrease in the decrease or increase in the quantity will always be less than 10. So in this case, the value of the EP or the coefficient will be less than 1. And the third category is unidelastic. What that means? That means that when there is a 10% or 5% or 15%, whatever, change in the price of the particular good, the same amount of change will be there in the quantity demanded. If its price falls by 10%, its demand will increase by 10%. So the coefficient value will always be 1. And it is the reason this type of good is called unit elastic. But this graph shows the elastic demand. We can see that in the y-axis we have price and in the x-axis we have quantity. So suppose initially the price was P and the consumer was purchasing OM quantity of produce. Now the price falls from P to P dash. The quantity demanded increase from OM to MM dash. If I look at this graph very carefully, we can see that this amount, that is PP dash, is less than MM dash, which is the increase in the quantity demanded. So what happens that in this case, since the quantity demanded is greater than the price in reduction, the percentage change in price reduction, its demand is relatively elastic or its EP value is more than 1. This is a case of inelastic demand where initially the price was P and the consumer was buying ON amount of quantity. With the decrease in the price by PP dash amount, the increase in the quantity is only NN dash. And from the graph, it is very clear that this amount is very less than this PP dash amount. So that's why this graph is for the inelastic good. So if we look at this two demand curve, in case of elastic demand, we can see that it's relatively flatter. Flatter means its slope is less. And in case of inelastic demand, it is steeper. Steeper means its slope is more. Now there comes two extreme cases. So what are these extreme cases? One is perfectly elastic demand and another one is perfectly inelastic demand. Hello everyone. My screen is not visible. Someone has messaged me.
Visible, ma'am.
Okay.
It's visible. Now it
No, ma'am, it's visible.
Okay. Now coming to the topic, perfectly elastic demand. What does it mean? Suppose there is a good which previously the consumer was not buying at all at the prevailing market price. Now it market price falls, suppose from rupees 15 or 20 to rupees 12, from 15 to 12, very small decrease, or maybe 15 to 13. What happens that initially when the buyer was not purchasing at all any quantity of the commodity, he will now buy all they could obtain with their initial income. So this type of thing is called perfectly elastic demand. Or it can happen in the other way also. Suppose a certain quantity of the produce was being purchased by a consumer at the prevailing market price, and there is slight increase in the price, like from 15 to 16 or 17. And what happens that the buyer completely stops buying it. He completely switch away from this product and he will try to buy another product. So in case of perfectly elastic demand, the change in the price and the change in the quantity demanded is change in the quantity demand is very 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 high compared to the change in the price. So it's almost tends to 0. So that's why the EP value becomes infinite. And in this case, the demand curve become horizontal, because at this particular price, OP, the consumer will buy anything, any amount they like or any amount they could obtain. But even if it shifts from OP to O0, suppose there is a point or there is a point, he will not buy anything. He will completely shift away from that product. So this is perfectly elastic demand. Here the coefficient value is infinite. The second extreme case is perfectly inelastic demand. So what happens in this case is the change in demand, any percentage change in price will not affect anything. of the quantity demanded. Even if the price increases or even if the price decreases, there will be no change in the quantity demanded. There will be no effect at all. So in this case, the value of the coefficient becomes zero. Because if we look at the if we look at the particular definition of coefficient, we can see that in the numerator there is percentage change in quantity demanded. Since it is zero, there is no there is nothing we can do to increase or decrease the quantity demanded. So the elasticity becomes zero. And in this case, the demand curve becomes vertical to the x-axis. So if we can look at this particular graph, in the second graph, we can see that the consumer is buying OQ quantity irrespective of the price. The price change, if it's change from this point to this point to this point, there will be no change at all. He will be buying that same particular OQ quantity, even if the price increases or the price decreases. I hope clear to everyone. If you want to ask anything, you can ask.
Hello, ma'am. Ma'am,
Hello?
can you please explain it again? Hello, ma'am. Am I audible
Your
to
voice
you?
is breaking. I'm not able to hear you.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello?
Ma'am. Hello.
Yeah, you are audible.
Ma'am, can you repeat it again? Necessity of demand.
Sorry, can you write it in the chat? Actually, I'm not able to hear you.
Okay, ma'am.
Which part? From starting? Oh, okay. Demand for any good is said to be elastic. Suppose I'm giving an example. Okay, I am buying apple. So initially the apple was priced at rupees 100 per kg. Now the price has reduced from 100 to suppose 80. So there is 20% reduction. And previously I was purchasing only 1 kg. Now at this rupees 80, I am purchasing suppose 3 kg. So there is, 2 kg suppose. So there is double, means 50 times or 100 times, means 100% increase in terms of quantity purchased. So when the price decreased by 20% only, the total amount demanded, the percentage change, if we look at like this, there is 100% increase in the quantity demanded. So if we divide this 100 by 20%, we'll get the coefficient of the elasticity. So in this case, 100 by 20 equal to 5. This is called elastic demand because the value is more than 1. And the proportionate increase in the quantity demanded is very higher than the proportionate increase in the decrease in the price. Now, in case of inelastic demand, this will be reversed. Suppose there is 20% decrease in the price of a particular commodity or the apple, but I am only increasing my purchasing or the quantity demanded by 10%. So my increase in the demand is lesser than the proportionate change in the price. So it happens that if we divide that 10% by 20%, we'll get value 1 by 2 or 0.5. So here the value of price elasticity will be less than 1. The third case is unit elastic. That means when there is a 20% reduction in the price, there will be 20% increase in the quantity demanded. So if we divide this 20 by 20, we'll get the value 1. So the coefficient of elasticity is equal to 1. That's why this type of commodity is called unit elastic or unitary elastic commodity. And there are two extreme cases. One is perfectly elastic demand, another one is perfectly inelastic demand. So in case of perfectly elastic demand, what happens? That suppose the consumer was buying some amount at a particular price. If there is slight rise also, he will be completely abandoning that product and he will completely switch away that particular product and he will be not buying any quantity. And in case of perfectly inelastic demand, whatever may be the price, whatever may be the increase or decrease or whatever percentage there is change in the price level, he will be purchasing that particular quantity only. So he will, in this graph, he will be purchasing only OQ quantity irrespective of the price. And in this graph, which is showing the perfectly elastic demand, he will be purchasing any quantity at that particular price. So these 5 are the different types of elasticity that can be explained. I hope it's clear now.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now there are 2 types of measurement of elasticity. One is called point elasticity, another one is called arc elasticity. So when it is called point elasticity, when there is very small change in the price or the quantity demanded. So suppose there is only delta X change, means very small quantity. So in those cases, we'll use the point elasticity method. So point elasticity method, what happens in this formula, delta Q is the change in the quantity demanded and Q is the original quantity which was previously the consumer was purchasing before the change in the price into 100. And in the denominator, there is delta P, which is the change in the price level, which is divided by the initial price level into 100. So this formula gives the value of a point elasticity at a particular point when there is very small change in price or quantity demanded. But in case of arc elasticity, what happens that suppose there is a quite a change. Suppose previously the price was 100, now the price becomes 50. So there is a huge change, 50% reduction in the price. So in these cases, what happens that the quantity, though the delta Q remains the same, but initial quantity we cannot take as the denominator of delta Q. Because if we take 100 and if we take 50 as denominator in two cases while calculating point elasticity, the values will come to entirely different. It may happen that while taking 100, we may get value less than 1, and while taking 50, we'll get value more than 1. Because it can happen in the both ways. No? Like previously it was 100, now it became 50, or it may have previously it was 50, it now become 100. So because of this confusion, because of this problem, what happens that delta Q or delta P is divided by initial quantity and the now the quantity after reduction in the price divided by 2 as denominator. And in case of price also, the initial price and the price which is now prevailing divided by 2. So in this way, arc elasticity formula is calculated. Now coming to the relationship with this price elasticity with total revenue and total expenditure. So total revenue क्या होता है कि price of a particular good into the quantity sold in case of production, and expenditure in terms of consumption. So when the demand for a particular good is elastic, when the elasticity value is greater than 1, if there is a fall in the price, it will raise the total revenue and vice versa. Why it happens? Suppose the good is elastic. Previously, you were buying 100 at 100 rupees, 1 kilo, total revenue was 100 rupees. 100 into 1 equal to 100. Now with the fall in the price, suppose the fall is 100 to 80, now you are buying 2 kgs. So your total revenue becomes 80 into 2 equal to 160. So with the fall in the price, the total revenue increases from 100 to 160. That's why the demand for a good, when it's elastic, a fall in price will raise the total revenue. Now, in case of demand, when in case of total expenditure also, the same thing applies, because the total expenditure is part of the consumption from the consumer point of view, and total revenue is a part of the production from the producer point of view. So with the fall in the price of a good, if the total expenditure increases, the demand for the good is called elastic. If a good is inelastic, a fall in price reduces the total revenue. How so? Suppose again the same example, at rupees 100 you are buying 1 kg apple, your total expenditure was 100 and the producer's total revenue was 100. Now with the fall in price from 100 to 80, you are only buying, suppose 1.1 kilo. Okay. So while you are buying only 1.1 kilo, you have only increased 100 grams. Your total revenue, from your side, the total expenditure will be rupees 88. And the total revenue to the producer will be rupees 88. So what happens that with the fall in the price, the total revenue on the part of the producer and the total expenditure on the part of the consumer reduced. And vice versa in case of price increase. And lastly, when there is a demand for good is unit elastic. Suppose again same example, 100 rupees 1 kilo, total revenue, total expenditure rupees 100. Now there is 20% decrease from 100 to 80, and there is 20% increase in from 1 kilo to 1.2 kilo. Okay, so what happens that if you multiply it 80 into 1.2, I know it comes around 96, but it's almost equal to 100. So there will be no change in the total expenditure or total revenue. So in case of unit elastic product, the change in price do not affect the total revenue amount or the total expenditure amount. Next, there are some determinants of price elasticity of demand. So there are 5 determinants which are very important. First one is type of good. Now, type of good, what that means? Necessary, luxury, comfort, we all know. Okay. So what are the necessaries? Like food, clothes, shelter, all these things. So in case of these necessary items, the demand is more or less inelastic, because without food, without shelter, we cannot sustain. So even if its price is very much hiked, we'll still buy more. And if its price is very much low, will not buy more than, like, suppose एक एग्जाम्पल देके बताती हूँ, अगर राइस का अभी प्राइस चल रहा है ₹50 पर किलो, इसका अगर प्राइस ₹1000 भी हो गया ना, तब भी हमको खरीदना पड़ेगा, बिकॉज इट इज नेसेसिटी फॉर अस. तब भी मे बी विल बाई सम reduced quantity, but will definitely buy definitely which is needed by us for our physical health. अभी अगर 50 rupees से ये 5 rupees भी हो गया, and previously you were buying 10 kg for you alone for a month, will you buy at 5 rupees 100 kg? You will not buy, because what will you do for that 100 kg? You will not only need 10 kg. 90 kg is more than sufficient for you, so you will not buy. Maybe you will buy 20 kg or 30 kg की चलो मैं 2-3 महीने में खा लूंगी, ठीक है, लेकिन आप 100 kg नहीं खरीदोगे ना प्रीवियस को मैच करने के लिए. तो टाइप ऑफ गुड इज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट which determines the price elasticity of demand. So in case of luxury, it is more elastic. Let me give you an example. Suppose you want to buy an Gucci bag. Okay, so you will always wait कि उसका प्राइस थोड़ा कम हो जाए, या मेरा सैलरी थोड़ा बढ़ जाए, या माई स्कॉलरशिप और मे बी समथिंग इंक्रीजेस, so then I will buy. So it is always elastic. तो उसका प्राइस कम होगा तभी खरीदेंगे, या फिर उसका मुझे अपना सैलरी इंक्रीज होगा तभी खरीदेंगे. तो उसका प्राइस के साथ आपका डिमांड बहुत फ्लक्चुएट करता है. इसीलिए इन केस ऑफ लग्जरीज इट्स मोर इलास्टिक. In case of necessities, it is less elastic or inelastic. Second one is usage. When a good can be used in a number of things, it have a relatively elastic demand. Example, suppose milk का जब price 50 हो, suppose अभी milk का price 20 से 50 हो गया. Previously, you were using milk for making tea, for drinking milk, or maybe doing something or the other thing. But now when it becomes so costly, you will maybe only use it for drinking purpose. You will not use it to make coffee, tea, and other purposes, or maybe making tea. So when a good is having a number of usage, it will always be a relatively elastic demand, because then people will, when there will be increase in the price, people will reduce its usage, and when there will be fall, they will more try to use it more frequently. And the inelastic good will be like the goods which have not very much usage, like in terms of salt. Means salt can be used in many things, but suppose it has no substitutes, which is the third point. So when there is no substitute for a particular product, the product will always be inelastic demand, because you cannot substitute it for the other things also, because you cannot use any other things for the use of salt. There is no thing in the world which can be replaced to be used by salt. Okay. So existence of substitutes is another very important determinant of price elasticity. The fourth one is possibility of postponement. जब भी किसी चीज का, किसी गुड्स का, किसी सर्विस का हम परचेस पोस्टपोन कर सकते हैं कि नहीं छोड़ो अभी नहीं चाहिए, बाद में भी कर सकते हैं, then that becomes a elastic good, because that is not necessary for you, that is not very important to you, कि नहीं नहीं मुझे अभी चाहिए, I need this and now only, without this I cannot leave, or maybe those things. You can say that okay, maybe I will take next month, or maybe next year, maybe when its price will go down that time. And the last one is range of prices. When the price is very high or very low, the demand is inelastic. Suppose salt, it's only 10 rupees kg. Not in terms of substitute, but in terms of like price, it's only 10 rupees. So in that case, it's inelastic. तो उसका 10 rupees से 12 भी हो जाएगा तो हम खरीदेंगे. Though it is 20% increase in the price, but we will not think in terms of that. We'll think कि हाँ ठीक है 10 रुपए थे अभी 12 हो गया, नहीं जो भी है हम खरीद लेंगे, ऐसा ही हम सोचते हैं. So in case of when the price range is very high or very low, the demand is still inelastic. The second point is, the second type of elasticity is cross elasticity. तो क्रॉस इलास्टिसिटी समझने के लिए पहले हमको समझना पड़ेगा कि व्हाट इज कॉम्प्लीमेंट गुड एंड सब्स्टिट्यूट गुड. तो कॉम्प्लीमेंट गुड्स क्या होता है कि जो गुड्स हम एक साथ यूज कर सकते हैं, लाइक ब्रेड एंड बटर, लाइक नाइफ एंड फोर्क, लाइक ट्रैक्टर एंड ड्राइवर, दोस थिंग्स. तो और सब्स्टिट्यूट क्या होता है कि जो हम एक के बदले रिप्लेस में यूज करते हैं, लाइक टी एंड कॉफी, butter and marmalade or jam, like that. So cross elasticity of demand में क्या होता है कि suppose एक good X है और एक good Y है, they are related goods, maybe some substitute, maybe complements. So the degree of responsiveness of demand of one good, suppose good X का responsiveness in demand कैसा होगा if the price of good Y changes, not his own price, the price of the related goods. So this thing represents the cross elasticity of demand. If we look at the formula, we can see that coefficient of cross elasticity shows that percentage change in quantity demanded of good X is divided by percentage change in price of Y, where X and Y are related good in terms of substitute or maybe complements. Now here I have given the example, like if two goods are substitute, then the cross elasticity between these two goods will be positive. How so? Suppose there is coffee and tea. If the price of coffee increases, the demand for tea will also increase. Why? Because when the coffee's price increased, it becomes dearer. So the consumer will try to replace it with a cheaper option, tea. So as a result, the demand will increase. So when two goods are substitute, Cross elasticity of demand will be positive because the change in price of good Y and the change in quantity demand of good X will move towards the same direction. Now, in case of complement, suppose there is increase in the price of bread. It will automatically reduce the uh, quantity demanded of butter because they are used together. If the price of the bread is increased, then its demand will reduce. If bread is bought less by the consumer, then butter will also be bought less by the consumer. So in this case, when the goods are complements, the cross elasticity between the goods is negative because the percentage change in quantity demanded will and the percentage change in price of good Y will move in two different direction. And the last one is income elasticity. So what it is that when there will be a change in the income of the consumer, which always we have taken as a constant, other things being constant, ceteris paribus, उसमें जितने सारे components आते हैं income of the consumer, price of the other related goods, तो वो जो price of the other related goods है वो आता है cross elasticity में और income of the consumer आता है income elasticity में. तो income elasticity का क्या है definition? ये एक रेशियो है जो दिखाता है कि how the percentage change in quantity demanded of a particular good will happen if there is particular percentage change in the income of the consumer. Now, there are two types of goods. One is normal good, another one is inferior good. So, in case of normal good, when there is an increase in the consumer's income, there will be increase in the quantity demanded of that goods as well. So, the value of income elasticity is always greater than zero or positive. Or maybe vice versa, like if there is decrease in the income, the quantity demanded will also decrease. Now, in this normal goods also, there are two types. One is luxury good, another one is necessary good. So, in case of luxury good, what will happen that if the proportionate increase in income is 20%, the quantity demanded of luxury good will increase by suppose 30%. That means more than the percentage change in income. So as a result, the income elasticity value will be more than 1. And in case of necessary, when the percentage change in income is suppose 20%, for the necessary goods, the quantity demanded percentage change of quantity demanded will be less than 20%. So the income elasticity value will always be less than 1. And the last one is inferior good. So when a good is inferior, it will always have negative income elasticity. What it means? When there is increase in the income on the part of the consumer, the percentage change of the quantity demanded will not increase, it will decrease. That means two of these things will move towards two different directions. That's why goods which have negative income elasticity are called inferior good. Sorry, there has been some typographical error. I have written it as normal good, but it should be inferior good. Sorry for that. Now, if you have any question on this part of elasticity, you can ask me, or I will move to the next topic, consumer surplus. Anyone? Shall I move to the next topic?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the next topic is consumer surplus. So the concept of consumer surplus was first given by Dupuit in 1844, but we don't know his name because later on Alfred Marshall refined this topic and he popularized the concept in his book Principles of Economics in 1890. So what do we mean by consumer surplus? Consumer surplus is the difference between the price which the consumer is willing to pay and what he actually pays for a particular commodity. Suppose I went to buy apple and the shopkeeper tells me that the price of the apple is rupees 80 per kilo. And I was thinking that ये अगर 160 भी बोल देंगे ना तो मैं ले लूंगी क्योंकि 160 मेरा हाईएस्ट लिमिट है कि यहाँ तक तो होता ही है आई विल बाई सो दैट
20
प्राइस
तक
विच आई
वही
वाज
और
विलिंग टू
बाकी
पे
20 में
कि 160 भी बोलेंगे तो मैं ले लूंगी हेलो
हाँ,
हेलो हेलो एम आई ऑडिबल
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
सो ये जो डिफरेंस है कि अच्छा वो शॉपकीपर अगर 160 भी बोलेंगे तो मैं ले लूंगी और उसने एक्चुअली में 80 बोला जो कि मुझे देना है तो दिस डिफरेंस दिस बिटवीन 160 एंड 80 दिस डिफरेंस इज कॉल्ड कंज्यूमर सरप्लस ये जो डिफरेंस है कंज्यूमर सरप्लस वाला ये दिखाता है कि हाउ मच एक्स्ट्रा satisfaction I am getting from that particular purchase and the extra satisfaction obtained from that purchase is a measurement of also of the consumer surplus. Now the amount that I was willing to pay, but it shows the total amount of utility I was thinking I will derive from purchasing of that particular good. So consumer surplus is equal to what is consumer is willing to pay minus what he actually pays. Now consumer surplus can also be defined by this particular formula which I have given here. Which is summation of MU, which is marginal utility, minus price into number of units purchased. Why so? We know that summation of marginal utility is equal to total utility. And I have already said that the amount of money a person is willing to pay indicates the amount of total utility. So this gives the total utility or the amount of money a purchaser is willing to pay. Now, what is given by this? Price into number of units purchased. That means what? The total amount I have actually spent on that particular good. So, if the total utility is greater than the amount which I have paid, I will gain consumer surplus, some amount of the consumer surplus. Now, to understand in a better way, we'll take help of this particular graph. Suppose in the x-axis we can see the quantity and the y-axis we have taken the price and marginal utility. Suppose for the first unit of apple, I was willing to pay rupees 20. But the shopkeeper भैया said नहीं इसका तो market price ही rupees 12 है. तो क्या हुआ कि rupees 20 minus 12, this rupees 8 is my consumer surplus for the first unit of the product I buy. Now for the second unit, what happens that मैंने सोचा कि नहीं एक तो खरीद लिया है इसके लिए मैं 20 रुपीज नहीं पे करना चाहती इसके लिए मैं 18 पे करना चाहती हूँ मार्केट प्राइस तो सेम ही है 12 so this difference of 18 minus 12 6 is the consumer surplus for me for the second unit. For the third unit the consumer amount I am willing to pay is rupees 16. And for the fourth unit, I am willing to pay 14, and the fifth unit, I am willing to pay 12. So for third unit, I will have 4 rupees of consumer surplus. For fourth unit, I will have 2 rupees of consumer surplus. And the fifth unit, I will not have any consumer surplus because the amount I am willing to pay and the prevailing market price is the same. And at this point, I will stop my purchase because at this point, my willingness and the price I am paying is equal to 1. So if we take all these values of the consumer surplus and if we draw a smooth curve like this, we'll get this amount of consumer surplus. While I am buying OM quantity, I am willing to pay OD amount of price and I am actually paying OP amount of price. So this much is the consumer surplus of I will derive. So in this way, we can calculate consumer surplus with the help of graph, and the consumer surplus indicates the amount of satisfaction or extra satisfaction which a person derives from purchasing of a particular product. With this, I conclude my topic. I hope you all have understood it. If not, you can ask me anything.
Yeah, I request to all the participants, if someone has any query regarding this
Sorry?
topic, please ask to me.
I am not
Hello.
able to hear you. Can you repeat once?
I request to all the participant, ma'am, if someone has any query regarding all two session, so please ask to you.
Yes, ma'am. Hello.
Yes,
Hello?
Yes, consumer surplus can only be derived with the help of satisfaction, or we can derive it with the help of the money or other measurements.
Since it's a concept given by Marshall, and we know that Marshall believed in the cardinal concept where the utility can be measured. So he measured in terms of money aspect only, because he used the term util to measure the utility. So in terms of that only, he have measured the consumer surplus from money terms.
Okay, in the form of the utils only, we can be measure the consumer surplus.
Sorry?
We can only measure with the help of the money, with the satisfaction level.
Actually, consumer surplus, since it's a cardinal concept, we can only measure in terms of money only. Yeah, you are right. But in real life, it is very difficult to tell, because it is very much subjective to a person. So even if I am willing to pay rupees 20 for a particular commodity, you may not will be able to pay like 20. You will be, suppose you are willing to pay rupees 25. So it's a very objective, subjective term, and it is can be only purchased with the help of money only. But since if you are asking about in real terms, it is actually very difficult to calculate.
Okay, but in progressive taxation system, they says that they use the concept of consumer surplus to determine the taxation.
या एक्चुअली व्हाट हैपेंस ना कि जिसमें जो भी सपोज कोई एक गुड्स है या कोई एक कमोडिटी है जिसमें जिसमें गवर्नमेंट को पता है कि इसमें कंज्यूमर सरप्लस ज्यादा है, दे डोंट नो व्हाट इज द एक्चुअल अमाउंट ऑफ कंज्यूमर सरप्लस, बिकॉज इट्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू कैलकुलेट फॉर इंडिविजुअल पर्सन, because there are so many person and it's a very subjective thing. So they will think that suppose in case of a particular commodity there is a higher consumer surplus, so in that case they will try to put tax on those particular commodities where consumer surplus amount could be higher. So in terms of luxury, suppose luxury goods, it may happen like that. So they don't know the exact amount of consumer surplus, but they know that there is a high amount of consumer surplus. Extra satisfaction is enjoyed by the consumer. So then they will put more taxation on those particular goods which are higher consumer surplus.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And some of you have asked a reference book. So I have referred Court Sunnis and H.A. Lahuja, the micro book, that one for preparing this PPT, and I will share. Okay. So if you have any feedback or anything to say, please suggest, because I would love to hear that so that I can better my presentation.
Thank you so much, ma'am. You have given more than 100% to explain all these concept of economics with very simple language.
Hello.
And with familiar example. And so definitely, ma'am, it will help to all the participants. Yes, ma'am, am I audible?
Actually, your voice is breaking.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, ma'am. I'm in university and university hasn't and there has connectivity issue from last day. Hello, ma'am. I'm audible.
Sir, your voice is breaking.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Yeah. Sorry, ma'am. There is connectivity issue in university. So that's why I'm extremely sorry for that.
No problem.
First of all, I'm thankful for you, ma'am. You haven't given more than 100% to explain all the concept of economics in very simple and with familiar example. Definitely, ma'am, it will help for all participants for all exams, not only for NET entrance, but all competitive entrance exam related to economics. So first of all, I'm very thankful you. And I also thankful to all the participants because they're patient because many times we had faced whatever the technical issue. So thank you for them. And before concluding this session, I request all the participants, please join at 3:30 for our next session with Suresh sir. Okay.
Thank you, Praveen, for your kind words, and
Shall
thank
we
you,
stop now,
everyone,
ma'am?
for your.
Is someone has
Yeah.
concluded
Okay,
our
I'm
this session?
stopping. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining the class.
Thank you, ma'am.